Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. I actually had to zoom my lens out a bit for this one, but today we're discussing the spectacular and spectacularly proportioned Roger Dubuis Easy Diver Chronograph, a giant of the mid-2000s. This Geneva hallmark traditional Lemania Bausch-powered artisanal chronograph can be seen and purchased on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full listing for this one of 888 piece limited edition column wheel manual wind diving chronograph with accessories included in the sale, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Roger Dubuis Easy Diver chronograph. Now, the watch on my wrist represents the first generation sports activity watch, part of a class of 3 fundamental models that debuted in 2004. The watch took Geneva seal levels of finish and outrageous heights of design into what can't be described as the mainstream, but certainly into the fray against the like of established segment powers from the likes of Panerai and Audemars Piguet. What this watch brought to the table that neither of the other two did was almost a Dadaist style sensibility with absolute adherence to the strictest standards of traditional Geneva watchmaking and finish. Can the two coexist in a 46mm steel case? Well, let's take a look. That is the diameter of this watch on my wrist. As you can see, the timepiece is 46mm from 9 to 3, not inclusive of the enormous crown and chronograph pushers. It might not be as thick as you imagine. 15.1mm with a generously sloped bezel means if your cuff can clear the watch laterally, it should be able, at least suit jacket cuff-wise, to clear the top of the bezel. Now, I do mean laterally, because that's where this watch expands to enormous proportions across the wrist. I would say my 16cm circumference wrist is the smallest possible wrist that, with proper cutting and sizing of the strap, could wear this watch with any kind of decorum or grace. Any smaller and you're definitely going to want to consider a different model. But the watch is comfortable and it is nicely shaped, so there are no pressure points or hot spots on my wrist. 58mm from lug to lug, though, is not forgiving of a spindly forearm. That's why we allow you to try before you buy. The other thing that's important to note is that the strap is impressively made. First of all, enormous in its cross section. It is very durable. It also breaks up its visual mass with cut character lines, and you'll note that it's affixed to the lugs with screws rather than spring bars. So large, heavy, and expensive. The watch was designed for physical security on the wrist. No spring bars here. Not the cheapest way to make a watch, but the only way to make a large, heavy, and expensive watch. You'll also note the triple lug system to ensure absolute purchase on the strap so it doesn't pull out at center. This will stay anchored. You'll also note the artful use of carbon fiber in the junction between caseband and strap, the visual transition from the steel to the rubber being eased by the carbon fiber inserts on the top, and the mass of metal being broken up by the carbon fiber inserts in the relieved profiles of the lugs. There's a lot going on here, but again, if we're to take the Robert Venturi maxim, more is more, this watch certainly delivers. Now, you'll also note that the strap is nicely made on the underside, as it has small channels to allow alleviation of moisture, heat, or sweat buildup on the underside, and a very nicely made clasp. You can see imprint Easy Diver on the outside, but also with thoughtful detailing on the interior of the clasp. Let me see if I can show you this, because it deserves a shout out. You can see the repeating Dubuis logo RDRD on the interior of the clasp, no detail overlooked, finished and detailed throughout, inside and out. Twin trigger release system, again, that's what you want for big and heavy watch, the twin triggers, ensuring that this one will not accidentally pop open in the heat of battle. Also important to note that a full width strap allows the watch to sit securely on the wrist. Let me show you what I mean by that. I mean that the strap being properly sized to the full width of the lugs prevents the watch from torquing along the wrist. If the strap were too narrow, the watch would have a tendency to twist and move. By anchoring it securely with a broad platform on both sides, it stays put. Now, Dubuis executed the case so that, broadly speaking, it echoed the first-generation sympathy models. You can see the undulating combination of curves and something of an abstract square geometry from that first sympathy. Nevertheless, this watch is very much its own shape. As you can see, the case has been enhanced with an abundance of finish. There's a vertical satin grain along the case band, as well as small polished details like the lip of the case top where it meets the case band all the way around has a hairline polished finish to it that makes for handsome detailing. You'll also note the same degree of contrast present in the top of that particular structure, as well as the hoods of all three lugs. Now, the bezel is a unidirectional rotating unit, but you'll note that without any luminescent insert, it can be used for timing something when aligned with the minute hand, but without the luminescent insert, we can't properly call this a dive watch. That said, the dial does feature abundant luminescence and is easy to read at night. The crown is gloriously oversized and styled in the Baroque fashion that feels equal to the rest of the watch. You can see the same degree of detail has been lavished on the screw-down chronograph pushers. Even the screw heads have been polished in the flanks of the lugs. The dial, however, is the star, with a spectacular golden bronze and a deep cut. It's both segmented and almost radiant, so it has depth and detail, but it also has a luminosity that's almost a direct reflection of whatever light you're in. In soft light, it glows gently. In direct sunlight, it explodes with the force of the sun. And not only do you have the texture and tone, but you also have color, as there's red, there's blue, there's white, there's gold, there's black. There's a good deal going on with this watch, and yet very easy to read, as you can see the skeletonized hour and minute hands, as well as the extended index for chronograph seconds. Let me see if I can operate the chronograph for your viewing pleasure. The chronograph is a traditional column wheel Lemania 2310 Abausch, and if that sounds familiar, that's the same chronograph base used in the Patek Philippe 5070. And yes, it has the same functional traits and aesthetic beauty in this model. I do mean aesthetic beauty because remember at the beginning when I told you that Dubuis took the finest traditions of Geneva watchmaking into account during this period? Here's the proof right here. Now you can see "Just for Friends" inscribed on the back, because back in the day it was understood by Carlos Diaz, who was the founding principal and chief designer for the brand, that these would be polarizing watches. They were not for everyone, they were just for friends of the Dubuis manufacturer. Sure enough, what's inside is just as spectacular as what's outside, although arguably more universal in its appeal. Now this is the Roger Dubuis caliber RD56. It's based on the Lemania 2310, a big slow beating balance at 18,000 vibrations per hour. It has a 48-hour manually wound power reserve, Geneva hallmark finish with a traditional capped column wheel, black polished screw heads, a rich beautifully rounded mirrored anglage on the edge of every bridge that's actually easier to see when I turn the movement square to the camera. Let me move the rubber strap out of the way. There, now you can see the edges of the bridge lighting up every bridge, and some of the levers have been beautifully anglaged around their periphery by hand and with such a broad rounded radius that you can actually see it without the need of a loop. This is an easy watch to appreciate even without a magnifier. Now other traits that you're going to appreciate are the crisp action of the column wheel, which is finely tuned, the Breguet over coil hairspring on the balance, which helps the watch to resist positional or gravitationally induced timing deviation, and it's worth mentioning that should you wish to really drill down, everything that you see even at the micro level is as satisfying as everything you behold at the macro level. 48-hour power reserve, manual wound, swan's neck regulator, black polished atop, a huge balance that's almost 1/3 of the entire diameter of the movement. That's old school. Now the timepiece, of course, 300 meters water resistant, is one that is ready to get wet and wild, whether you take it to the Italian or French Riviera for a far-flung winter vacation, or you take it to summer climes northwise for the season to come. You can see and enjoy this spectacular and, make no mistake, just for friends, Roger Dubuis Easy Diver chronograph, as spectacular as it was in the mid-2000s, on our website.